it is idiotic to not contribute to the retirement plan because your employer also contributes. I can't remember what it's 3%, 4%. Matt, you'll know. Whatever it is, there's money on the side of your employer that you are just giving up. And so this is pre-tax, obviously. And over time, if you are a physician, you have a kind of more substantial salary. It is my understanding that you every year want to max out on that because that is money that you're looking into the future that is before it goes to tax.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode here on the Perfect Plan podcast. I'm your co-host, John Stamper, with Matt Schiff. And as always, what is so great about doing this with Matt is sometimes I don't know who he's going to bring on. I don't know where they're at. I just know as a business owner that the content of this podcast has been beneficial for me. I hope it'll be beneficial for you. And so, Matt, welcome. It's great to have you back for another episode. And I'm very intrigued and very excited about your guest today. We're just going to start with Joe. I know he has an awesome backstory. I'm sure there's a great reason you have him on here to educate those that watch the Perfect Plan podcast. So Matt, good morning. Joe, good morning. It's good to see both of you.
Yeah, good morning, Joe. And we can call him Dr. Joe. This happens to be my brother-in-law. The reason why Joe is on today is his story is basically the standard story of a client, but a little bit closer. He's got my sister that he takes care of, my nieces and nephews, etc. But his story is of a doctor, specifically originally from Europe, now in the United States. And I'll let Joe tell you his story. But the thing here is, as a medical practitioner in today's world, we work on the protection side. He works on the healthcare side and protecting your health. And when you put those two together, they are some of the most difficult clients to work with as doctors, because doctors are very, very bright. They know a lot about the body. They know a lot about finance. But at the same time, they're also the ones who say, I can do everything on our own at times. And like myself, if I try to treat myself from a medical standpoint, I'm my own worst doctor because I don't know that stuff. I'm trying to do that stuff. And doctors try to do the same thing. So when Joe came to me and he was in the process of transitioning from one job to another, we started talking about some things from a finance standpoint. Most importantly, though, initially, we talked about disability insurance. Can you be able to make money if you're not working? What would happen to your family? He's got all of that. Then it's the life insurance. What would happen if you're not around? Would I be taken care of? So I'm taking a little bit away from Joe today, but Joe, tell us first off, thank you for being on. But first off, where you started from your mom and pop in London, and then how you went through your process to get where you are today.
Absolutely. I'll give you a brief overview of my background. So I have a British accent. I was born in the UK. I grew up in the UK, and then my parents, when I was at school, moved to Israel. I did boarding school, and then a kind of prep school in central London. And then after that, went back to Israel, and then back to England for college and medical school, and then back to Israel for my army service because I am an Israeli. And then after that, about almost 25 years ago, I came to America and decided that I wanted to practice medicine here. The way this works is that you have to retake a lot of exams, do a lot of training. Again, but that's a necessary evil. I had almost no net assets when I came to the States. So I am an immigrant, and like lots of there's 58 million immigrants, I believe, or something, in America. So I'm one of the immigrants, and America is an incredible place to be an immigrant because there are amazing opportunities. So I'm just going to quote someone who I know very well. He was a doctor a couple of years ahead of me in training, and he is also an immigrant. And he said, it's like a buffet. There's all this opportunity. You just have to sit there, walk up, you pay for it. Obviously, you don't just steal stuff, but anything is open to you. You just have to sit there and do things. So I came to the States. I did a residency at one of the Columbia programs, and then I did a fellowship in integrative medicine. And then very briefly, I worked for 15 years at what is, from a volume point of view, one of the largest integrated medicine centers in the country. And I was the director of integrated medicine there. We had 6 physicians, and I took insurance for 15 years. I saw 40, 50,000 patients. Integrative medicine is using alternative approaches that have research evidence. So we're not just making stuff up. We're using things that actually have clinical proof that they work, in addition to what the standard of care is. And our center was a subspecialty center as part of a large medical system. So we were referred tough cases, people with medical conditions that couldn't, wouldn't, no medicine was available. That was what it was. I got burnt out after 15 years. And so I left. I also left from a financial point of view with a 15 years of retirement investment in my 403B. And so that was where Matt was involved. And then just to quickly go on to where I am now, I now have a position where I teach twice a week in the hospital with the residents, which is very nice. And that's a nice base salary. And then I have, because I was able to, I have a little boutique concierge practice where I have a small amount of patients. I don't take insurance. I go to their houses, and I'm very, very much into wellness. So I do that. I have a startup that we are right at the end of due diligence with a number of VC firms in California. We will find out tomorrow if we have actually funded. And so all in all, I make it work. I certainly have a much more stable and larger salary than I did when I just worked like a grunt in a hospital. So if you are, to go back to this analogy, there is a buffet there. You pay your dues and then you take what you like, but you have to be brave to take things. And so if you go out and do these things, then the rewards are considerable. And if you diversify, they're considerable. So having a teaching position, having a private practice that is not insurance, having a startup, all of the things together, and I do some supplement endorsement, and I do a little television stuff to keep me not bored, and I write some books.
Tell us a little bit about the television. You were doing some integrative medicine with food, and you were on
So we so so yes, no. So I'm still on. So we still film. So I wrote my second book. My first book was a diet book for men. My second book was a book that was to do with the foods that contain cannabis-like compounds. It's called the cannabinoid-rich diet, or the cannabinoid diet. And I did that with a celebrity chef that I'd met. He's on the Food Network, and I met him on a TV network that I was working for. And we wrote this book together. And then along the same time, we did this internet show, which actually won a Telly Award a couple of years ago, called Condition Kitchen. It was very cool. And what we did was we have patients, and they would have a medical condition, and they would want us to treat it through nutrition. And then I would devise the nutrition plan that was going to work for them. But I'm not very good at cooking, as you, Matt, know, and as your sister definitely knows. And so Daniel Green is the celebrity chef, and he would then teach them how to cook the recipes. And it was all done on it's a very large health website called Everyday Health. They have about 60 million views a month. And so we were on that. And then I'm now on a TV network, mostly evangelical Christian. It's a Christian TV network called the Word, and we're potentially going to go onto another channel called the God Channel. So say it like it is. It's the God Channel.
The God Channel. Okay. Well, but what is the cannabinoid meals contain? What are they trying to do with those meals?
You're trying to, so the endocannabinoid system is a system of the body that marijuana, and CBD. Marijuana contains THC, CBD, a number like 150 other cannabinoids, and it stimulates this incredibly important part of the body. And there are foods that do the same thing because the body has to. In fact, we make our own natural marijuana in our body. It's made in our brain and it's made in different parts of the body, and it stimulates the body just like marijuana does. So there are foods that do the same thing. And so the idea was having a cannabinoid rich diet will enhance the effects of the endocannabinoid system, which is the main homeostatic mechanism for the body, which means it will basically, whatever happens to your body, the way your body gets back into balance emotionally, physically, psychologically, everything is through the endocannabinoid system. That's actually what it does. It gets you back into balance after whatever's happened has happened. So doing it better by eating certain foods is a good plan.
Interesting. You mentioned something about moving jobs after
Yeah.
15 years. So you were in a 403B, which is similar to a 401k, a retirement plan. What was it about the retirement plan specifically that got you involved in it? And then again, like most people, what were you trying to accomplish with
Right.
that retirement asset?
So with it's a 403B because it's a non-for-profit hospital where I work, hospital system. It is idiotic to not contribute to the retirement plan because your employer also contributes. I can't remember what it's 3%, 4%. Matt, you'll know. Whatever it is, there's money on the side of your employer that you are just giving up. And so this is pre-tax, obviously. And over time, if you are a physician, you have a kind of more substantial salary. It is my understanding that you every year want to max out on that because that is money that you're looking into the future that is before it goes to tax. And so it was just a simple mutual fund. We were originally, I think in the end we were Transamerica. Before that, we were somebody else. These typical massive companies that are mutual funds, the funds tied to the market. My fund was a more aggressive one. But and this is the reason why you and I talked. This happened a couple of years ago. So you end up with this chunk of money that at some point I'm going to need, but I don't need now. I'm intending to retire. Well, I'm not intending to retire at all. But technically, it would be
Well, that's
70.
because you have Noah El Diablo, but that's okay.
That's
You
right.
got to
That's
get
right.
out of
So
college.
that's right. That's right. I have 5 kids, etc. But so that's the point. So my personal circumstance is that I have 5 kids. My wife works as well, but I'm certainly the major bread earner. She wouldn't argue with that. Um, and so suddenly, after 15 years, this is not a small amount of money. This is a seven-figure or seven. Let me say, I don't know how many figures it is. It's a big chunk of money.
We know what the numbers are, Joe.
Yeah.
Bottom line is you want to protect it at some point.
So, right, and I need it protected, and sticking it in a mutual fund, the problem I had was that I need this money. So this is not like discretionary income. Matt, you and I have other things that we do where it's more discretionary income. I put money I put aside for my Roth IRA. It's nice, good. Hopefully, it'll make money in the market. Fantastic. But this is my asset. This is like my house. I need that, and I need that to be in a stable thing. And I'm not just going to put it in a bond because that's just not going to really do
Right.
much. Matt, what did you do for me? Because I needed that stable. I need that background money. That is your basic money you need, and I need that. So what did you do?
Well, that's like walking across a bridge with bumpers on either side. You have no problem going over the Verrazano Bridge in New York and saying, I'm going to go over it because I have these girders. You're not going to go off the bridge at any time. If things slow down, yeah, you're going to stay within those lines, always going straight across.
It's like bowling.
I'm
It's
sorry.
bowling. It's bowling
Yeah,
with the
bowling with
bumpers up.
bumpers, right? Exactly.
You can't miss.
Well, and see, that's the thing. In retirement, the worst thing that can happen to you is the day that you retire, the market goes down. And in this case, what you've done is you've put that bumper that protects your downside. And we've allocated not by mutual funds, but we've allocated by asset allocation that protects you along the way, would give your family income in case you passed away. Because, like you said, you are the major earner. You are the engine that drives the economic family. right there. Secondly, when you get to retirement, if the day that you retire, you have to go to take money out and that market goes down, it's going to have a compounding impact. Bottom line is what we've done is these assets, while you're working, are protected today, but also going forward. And we anticipate the growth anywhere between 0, which is our floor, and as high as 17% in some of these products. I mean, we're called a retirement income life annuity that you can roll over your money from a qualified plan into an IRA. You can also do this with non-qualified money, but it's usually done when you're transitioning somewhere in your 40s to 50s that you want the protection like you were talking about. Secondly, we've been setting up with our kids. Why would kids have the insurance? What was it that we were doing with our kids, Joe, that you thought was really important from just an insurability standpoint? Because between the two of us, we have 8 kids, 9 kids now.
So my younger kids, again, my older kids, we kind of managed to, through 529 plans, we've managed to cover their colleges. And I have 2 kids who've one's graduating, one's graduated, one's just to graduate, one's going to do another course. They're all covered. They're lucky. I mean, just as an aside, literally, one of my son's best friends is 100K in debt when he graduates college. My kids are 0 in debt because we put money aside for 20 years. But that was just what everybody else does with the 529, and it's not tied to them. It's tied to the market. It goes up, it goes down. It's the same problem. So what I did with my younger kids was put them into a life insurance product.
And the reason why the life insurance product was used is, God forbid, and I don't think that he's going to need it, if he ever wanted to borrow money, it doesn't count against your FAFSA numbers with regards to any borrowing or what they call economic need for financial aid, because life insurance is not one of those assets that's counted. John, you have kids, you know exactly what we're talking about. Specifically, you have an older child, and now you have a younger child that you get to relive all of those wonderful times of putting money aside, watching them go through the firsts of everything. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, better yet, I just had a conversation this past weekend with a old military friend of mine that I was in the Navy with, who him and his wife have retired, and they both had 403Bs. He worked for a university system in California after he got out of the Navy. She worked for the state of California. And in an interesting situation, Matt, they both have pensions, which you don't see that much anymore, right? They were in a room full of people, so they both have their pensions, so they know what they're going to receive each year. But kind of like Dr. Joe, they also had money in a 403B, and I was having a conversation with them this weekend about what to do with it, right? They don't need it. They might need to pull a little bit out. He's trying to manage his tax situation. So again, I think whether it's my friend or you, Joe, or millions of other people that are either in this stage or getting ready to retire, I think that this conversation is so valuable because I can tell you that I'm still not in the business anymore. I used to be, but my friend called me because he knew that I at least understood kind of the framework of this, and he could bounce ideas off of me. And so I think, Matt, this is something that is very valuable for people to know in regards to what to do in these situations. So, I mean, that literally just happened this weekend, which I think is kind of very timely to this conversation.
And that's what happens, John. Those are the conversations that occur over, a dinner table on Saturday night, over drinks around the house. And they're like, oh my God, I'm moving from one place to another. I'm making this transition. What do I do? Do I keep my money in my old 401k? Because you know what? Their fees are lower than anywhere else I can go. Well, wait a second. Who do I trust? What type of products do I use? What do I need? Because when you make a transition from working to non-working, like Joe's asset, as an example, we've seen the ads from ING, which is no longer around. Okay. ING is now Voya. Financial companies change. But one of the things that ING used to say is, what is your number. If anybody remembers that commercial, what is your number related to? Is it $1 million? Is it $1.5 million? Is it 2 million? No one knows what that number will generate in the way of income. You and I, and I'm sure Joe, you're used to living. If I told you you had $100,000, would you be able to live off that asset? No. If I told you you had $20,000 a month for the rest of your life, just like you said, John, the pension, I have income 20,000 the rest of my life, can never outlive it. Now that's called a head on the pillow moment. You can lay your head on the pillow knowing that every bill is going to be paid for, every medical expense is going to be covered, because you know that $20,000 covers your nut. If you're in the $5,000, income range and you're just out of college, that $5,000, Joe was immediately talking about putting money in the retirement plan. Do you know that if you put in $1, he was getting $1 match on the first 3% of his salary? That's, to the employee, that's free money. It's not free, but it's an immediate 100% performance bump on your savings. You put the money in the retirement account, you put it in the fixed account, you immediately make 100% on your money. Why wouldn't you do it?
Well, and here's the thing that I think is so interesting about this conversation is because, Joe, like you mentioned, you saw it as a benefit. They were going to match. You just knew through just basic common sense that that was a smart thing to do, right? And that's, Matt, as you know, because you talk to people all the time about this, that's phase one, okay? But then what happens in phase two, and I'll go back to my friend's situation. Okay, he did that. He did it blindly. He matched it. He could. He woke up one day, it performed reasonably well in the marketplace, right? And he now has this chunk of money. But what's interesting is that the complexity of what to do now, wow, that took a lot of different, variables. His tax situation, like getting Social Security, like what if he makes 6% on that money? What if he makes 12% on that money? It's almost like that's where that conversation, Matt, got real fun. But also on the flip side could get real dangerous, right? When I think about Joe, all the work that you did all the over those years to put that in, and you had that phase one advantage of the match. But as you know, Matt, where it really gets challenging for people is in this next phase of what to do, and more importantly, to preserve it. So I just wanted to kind of share that because that's where we spent the lion's share of our time in the conversation.
That's interesting that you bring that up, because when people are climbing Everest, they so much think about how they're going to get up there. But once you've achieved that goal, which we call retirement, how do you get down the mountain safely? How do you live through retirement? How do you write that last check that doesn't bounce just before you pass away? Because the hardest thing to do is not outlive your income or your assets. And in Joe's case, what he has done with some of our conversations is not only did we protect his growth side, but when he decides to flip on the income side, he can turn it on in such a way that he could have different buckets of money come available at different times. Because as we had Tom Hegna come on, you want to have a paycheck and a play check. And Tom talks about how the deferred income annuity can lock in a guaranteed income 5, 10, 15 years from now, while the RILA can provide the guaranteed floor, but also the upside of the market, like a 401k, and then turn on that income later on. That's a product feature. We're not talking about performance here. We're talking about the upside of the market with all the S&P, with all the Russell 2000, with all the different mutual funds inside that wrapper. But that product is basically doing the options, the puts, the protection strategy. And oh, by the way, people go, how much does it cost? In Joe's case, his products have a 0 expense charge with regards to his RILA. That's one of the things that people don't understand. When people say annuities are bad, they're talking about a variable annuity that may have 3, 3.5, 4% different fees for protection riders that you may put in there. So you get enhanced income and this and that. What I find is let one product do one thing at one time and then transition it to something else in the future. Because as you get older, if you had told me 20 years ago, interest rates were going to be at 4% for 20 years, I would have said, you're nuts. Because in 1980, the rates were 11.5 to 13%. If I had sold you a product in 1980 that was a 13% product, you would have been thrilled getting it for a 4% interest rate environment. But if I sold you a 4% product in 1980 and it was 13%, it's criminal. And there are clients who have been put in products by financial advisors that have just been sold. I mean, literally sold a product that was not right for them. Now, with regards to the kids and what Joe has talked about with his whole life, what we did with the kids is his father-in-law, my father, did generational skipping and gifting. So he did a gift up to the estate exclusion on each of the kids and gifted enough money so that they could either have $100,000 or $250,000 life insurance policy paid up over 10 years. And that 10 pay, excuse me, that 10 pay product basically has protected their future insurability, provided guaranteed cash should they want to buy a house. And then when they get to retirement, if they haven't touched it, it's a supplemental income that they could generate. But it's an asset that is a tax-free asset if taken out of the life insurance properly, that they can go ahead and do a whole bunch of things. They can go to college. They can pay a tuition payment. They want to put a down payment on a house. This is a great way of starting out your life when you're a 22-year-old kid and you're like, wow, I actually have an asset that I can use down the road. Oh, and by the way, when you're younger, we can actually add a rider that allows them to buy life insurance on a guaranteed issue basis without evidence of insurability that says from the time that they're 22 until they're 40, every 3 years, they could buy up to the maximum allowable at that time. It may be 100,000, maybe 125,000 in a rider, but it's called a guaranteed insurability rider that at age 25, 28, 31, 34, 37, and 40, the insured has the option to either elect to buy the policy at that time on a permanent basis or let that election go by. But the nice thing is, a family member, you have those elections of almost $1 million worth of coverage because your parents bought coverage for you when you were a kid. And that's really kind of cool. I mean, think about all the people who have medical issues as they get older, insurability issues and stuff like that. That's just one side. That's a protection side, but that's an asset. That's a cash asset that's growing in Mass Mutual, and Mass Mutual dividend. Not that it's guaranteed, but it's about 5.5%. You put it up against Guardian, New York Life, Northwestern Mutual. Those are all very, very tried and true products that have been around for 150 years. Do you think they'll be around for the next 150? Probably better than most chance that they'll get through that. But again, you're putting your stewardship in a mutual company that's there for the benefit of not the shareholders, but the policy holders. That's the difference between a publicly traded company and a mutual company. Now, there are definite reasons for a variable product. We talk about, our variable RILAs that have the mutual funds. Well, the difference in a variable product is you have a mutual fund wrapped with insurance. Susie Orman got it right. Buy term, invest the difference. That's an investment product. There are protection products. No one would say disability insurance is a bad product if you're worried about your income being protected. But if somebody said, oh my God, why are you paying money for disability income when what you need is retirement? You wouldn't be buying that product. You're buying an insurance protection product. Same thing happens with your investments, your retirement. You want to make sure it's aligned with where you are, what your goals are, where your family is, and your stage of life. because the average person who's getting to retirement is going to live in retirement almost 20 years. That's on the low side. If you retire at 65, the average person is getting to about 83 to 85. And the chance that one of you, if you're married at age 65 and you retire, the chance of one of you making age 90 is better than 50%. Better than 50% if two of you get to 65 and need retirement money. And those are the
So
things
Joe,
you have to plan for.
yeah, that's awesome, Matt. This is a very rich conversation today. I'm glad that we're getting into this now. And Joe, I wanted to ask you, you came into this family. I'm sure that you kind of knew that there was a little bit of financial education, right? That you got to take advantage of as being part of this family, which is always a nice bonus. But what I did want to ask you is this kind of second part of your life of where you are now. Like in my friend's situation, he has no plans to do some of these extra things. I heard you mention earlier in the conversation that, you love what you do. You're doing the concierge stuff. You've got your hands in the company. So like, it sounds like you're someone that's going to want to continue to, take your talents, give back to society. So your situation is a little different in kind of making sure that like this time and this asset that you've built up is
Right.
protected and is growing. What was it like for you kind of on the heels of like maybe before you did this? Like, were you ever thinking along the years you were putting this money in there, be like, holy cow, like, what am I going to do with this? Like when the time comes for me to manage it and to do it smart, like where was your head with all of that?
So, frankly, when you work as an employee of a system and you're just paying money for 15 years, you aren't thinking about that. I mean, I work twice a week for another system, and they have a 403B, and I just throw money in, and they match, and I don't think about it. I don't look at the market because it's irrelevant to me for probably the next 20 years. I hope it's going up, but and here's the point: it's what Matt said. I've got an anecdote for you, gentlemen. Um, there were a number of doctors who were, I know this actually personally, there were a number of doctors because one of my older colleagues' friends were in this situation. And it was a group of pulmonologists in Florida. They were all, or at least some of them, were getting ready to retire in 2008. And they were in the market. Their everything was in the market because that was mutual funds. And they all lost clearly from the crash of 2008 multiples of millions. And most of them had to work for another 7 years. 7 years. So now you're 62 or 65. And to be able to make to what the number is that you want, that playtime, paycheck, etc., they were having to work another 7 years because they didn't have a secure investment. There was no bottom. They weren't going playing bowling with the guardrails up. And so that was the thing about this. This is money I can't lose because I'm not prepared to lose it. So I needed a product that was not going to, if the market goes down, I'm not going to lose this because when I do decide to hang up my little stethoscope, I do not want this to be exactly when the market went down because that was 7 years more work that they did. That's 7 years of on call. They're pulmonologists. They work in the ICU. That's 7 years of getting crushed purely because of a financial decision that they made, which was to go with what everybody does: put your money in your 403B and don't worry about it. So that I do, and and it's a relatively aggressive mutual fund, but that's money that's not my fundamental. This is money I need, that I need to know that at the age of 72 there is X amount of money that Matt has put through these two insurance products, and I know I'm going to have it. And I don't know what's going to happen the week before I retire, but at least I'm going to know that I've got that. So that is my nest egg, in the same way as I've got equity in my house, but I can't eat my house.
The other thing that you talk about is you said, okay, I know I have this money. Most people in the United States think Social Security is their basic retirement income. Okay. You're European. Okay. You get a little, you're cynical on that one. You totally understand what I'm talking about. But in the United States, somebody of my age in their mid 50s, if you go on to the Social Security site today and you look at the amount of money, if you've maxed out your Social Security, you should be getting somewhere between if you're at age 60 and a half and you wanted to walk away at 59 and a half and immediately take your retirement money from Social Security, my number was around $2,700 a month if I took it at age 59 and a half. If I waited until age 70 and a half, the number was 44.95. That's almost 100% increase by waiting that period of time. Now, they say the law is 72, doubles every 10 years. Great. But the difference is if I had taken the money over those first 10 years, that dollar amount would have stayed at that level the rest of my life, not at $4,500, but it would have stayed at that 2,700 plus 3% inflation or 2% every single year. So that is one decision people don't get right a lot of times. When is the best time to take Social Security? The last eligible day. Because why? You're going to live most likely 10 to 15 years off of that. And the difference of living 20 to 25 years, you're not going to make up the amount of money that you're going to get by deferring the payment until age 70 and a half. That's number one. If you get nothing else from this show, remember to defer your Social Security until age 70 and a half. And as we go out, and they're starting to push it out further, it may go out to 72 or 74 or 76 as we think about this over the next 10, 15, 20 years, as Social Security is becoming more and more stressed by the draw of the baby boomers and the Gen Xers who are starting to retire. That is going to drain our society like you wouldn't believe. In fact, I had a conversation yesterday. Somebody was saying we spent 2% at one time about 45 years ago, 2% on healthcare and 15% on infrastructure. Now we spend 15% on healthcare and 2% on infrastructure. And imagine if we could switch that. That was a very telling number. That was like eye-opening to me yesterday during this conversation, because we were with John Samuels, who was on, and we were with this group of people that were talking about health and wellness and how to create that perfect life work balance and live a longer, more meaningful life. So it's just some of the interesting stats that are coming up in today's world. John, what have we missed so far with Joe? I mean, we've gone through the basic stuff of what we do with our clients and where Joe is and how you go through life's transitions, literally. I mean, the average person's going to work for 5 to 7 jobs in their lifetime. They're going to transition. If they work for somebody, they're going to have a retirement plan or retirement asset that they need to move. When they do that, question is, how do you protect it? So
well, first off, Joe, thank you so much for, sharing your situation. Again, like this conversation, this just happened to me this weekend. I literally had a friend that I check in with kind of every 6 to 8 months. We've known each other for many years, and called me because him and his wife are in this situation. And Joe, Matt wanted to do this podcast, and the more that we have conversations like this, Matt, it just makes me want to like double down on this show and do more of this and have you talk about what you talked about, because there are thousands, tens of thousands of probably millions of Joes out there that are in this stage of their lives that have done great things by doing maybe what they were guided to do, even if they didn't know what the result was going to be, which is put that money in that retirement account. Your employer's going to match it. And now they have it. But again, like I just remember my initial conversation with my friend, like on day one, and just kind of taking it in and marinating on it. And by the second conversation, man, was there a lot of other stuff. There was consideration about Social Security, which you just brought up. That was one of his questions. Should he take it or should he not? The other question was on taxes. Like, should he convert all to a Roth right away so he doesn't have to pay taxes on it? I was like, holy cow. Like,
absolutely. And the Roth conversion is a great idea, because if you're going to have, actually as a kid, it's actually better to put the money in a Roth today, your first 5,000, than it is to put it into the qualified plan, because that money on an after-tax basis will grow tax deferred and come out tax free in the future, versus your IRA, which went in pre-tax, grows tax deferred, and then you get taxed on the seed, which could be millions of dollars.
Yeah, but here's the interesting thing about that, right? So I think what his light bulb moment when we were having this conversation was, holy cow, now I know why when I was much younger and why, people advise younger people to set up their Roths, because now in his situation, if he's going to do a Roth conversion, and let's say he does it over the course of 2 or 3 years, like there's tax implications there. And so he realized that his window was super short and that he could have a real high, it could sling him into a much higher tax bracket versus, somebody that makes that decision early on in their life. So I only bring it up, and I think this is a great place to wrap, Matt, because to answer your question, I think these conversations are needed. A lot of people need to help them that need help around this. And, we're going to continue to this. And Joe, I'm glad that, that you obviously, made the decision that you did.
I'm married
And
well.
yes, yeah, yeah. But again, like there's a lot of people that are in situations like yours that they don't have that. Or on the flip side, there's so much noise, as you know, Matt, in the marketplace, and Joe, as I'm sure you have seen, where it's like it's out there. There's people making recommendations left and right, but who really is taking the time to look at your personal situation with all the different variables? That's the key, right, Matt? And so it's your perfect plan. That's the whole reason for it.
And that's the whole thing. Everybody's different. Everybody has a personal situation. There are tons of great products. There are tons of bad products.
Yep.
What you need to understand is where you are and have somebody who kind of guides you.
Yeah.
The right space for you, because my decision for my stuff is not the same as you, John, or you, Joe, or anybody else that we've had on. But Tom Hegna really explained how you need to have your income. You want to have that head on the pillow. When you retire, you know that your paycheck is covered. The biggest stressor that anybody has, and you talk to our business owners, is their cash flow. Mm-hmm. The second stressor is, oh my God, I have a health issue. What do I do? If you've got healthcare taken care of, or you've got coordinated care in retirement, such as a long-term care need, and 70% of us will have a need for home health care or a home health care situation in our lifetime, plan for it, because it'll drain your retirement asset. It'll also be a stressor on your family. So plan for those things. And awesome. Then also be prepared to live 20, 25, maybe even 30 years in retirement. I've heard this statement before, and we know the person who said it, Joe. If I knew I was going to live as long as as I did, I would have done things differently. Don't be that person.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, pensions aren't there anymore. Mm-mm. And the only way you can create a pension is to have an immediate income, or what they call a single premium immediate annuity, to create your income in retirement. And that is a good annuity. It's an income annuity. You can never outlive it. Never outlive it if you do it as a single premium immediate annuity for a single individual. But we need to be prepared to live a long time in retirement, even though we think we are going to have a short retirement, because everybody says, oh, well, I get to retirement, it's going to be quick. No, the worst thing you could do is outlive your assets and become a burden to your family. And we can help you protect against that and prevent that by planning properly.
Awesome. Well, Joe, thanks again. I have a feeling we're going to have more conversations with more people that Matt has helped and served. I'm going to push for it. I think this is super educational for everybody that's watching. Thanks as always, Matt, for all of this. And I do think that with each person that comes on here, they have a different situation. So I think people can connect with this, but best of luck, Joe, with all your endeavors. I can't wait to, now that this is a pleasure to meet you, and I'm excited to kind of follow, what you're up to and all of that stuff, Matt. And until next time, another great episode.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.